today. We will begin this morning's meeting with a roll call. Mr. Ragsdale, would you proceed, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Fleming?
Here.
Mr. Gill?
Here.
Mr. McKinnon?
Aquí.
Ms. Wilbanks?
Here.
Ms. Cole?
Here.
Dr. Pritchard? And Chair Sharp?
Here.
Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Ragsdale. I would like to remind you that copies of today's agenda are located at the front right podium if you need them. If you wish to be a speaker on any case that is on today's agenda, please fill out an attendance speaker's card located at the front podiums. Once you have filled out the card, please bring it up front and hand it to one of our DPD staff members located at the left of the podium. When that agenda item is called, you will be given an opportunity to speak. At this point, I would like to read you our conflict of interest. The adopted policy of the Land Use Control Board requires that any member of the board recuse himself or herself from any participation in the discussion or voting on any matter on the meeting's agenda in which he or she may have direct or indirect personal interest. The member shall vacate his or her seat during deliberation on any matter for which they have recused themselves. An abstention may substitute for a recusal for the purposes of maintaining a quorum. I would now like to get approval of our minutes from the last meeting. May I have a motion?
Madam Chairman, I would like to make one observation. James Toes was absent from the last meeting.
Okay. All right. Okay. I would like to get approval of our minutes as corrected.
I so move, Madam Chair.
Second. Okay, it has been moved. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. Motion carries. Mr. Ragsdale, may I please get a secretary's report for this month and an explanation of today's procedures?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not have a secretary's report, so I will start with the procedure. At the beginning of today's meeting, we will establish a consent agenda for those items where no one in the audience or on the board is requesting an individual public hearing. After the consent agenda is established and approved, we will move on to the regular agenda. For each case on the regular agenda, the DPD planner will give a presentation. This will be followed by the applicant's presentation and any testimony from others who support the application. The applicant and supporters will be given a total of 10 minutes. Following each speaker, the chair will ask the board members if they have any questions for that speaker. Next, the opposition will be given a total of 10 minutes to present their case. Following each speaker, the chair will ask the board members if they have any questions for that speaker. Finally, the applicant will then have 3 minutes for rebuttal under the same rules. Following all the presentations, and after all parties have been heard, the chair will ask the board members if the board members have any additional questions of anyone who spoke. Then the chair will close the public hearing portion of the case, entertain a motion on that matter, discuss, and then vote on the application. If an applicant or any speaker would like to be heard after the conclusion of the public hearing portion of the case, or if a board member wishes to hear any additional testimony from any party for additional clarification, a motion will need to be made along with a second, and then a 2/3 affirmative vote of the board is required to reopen the public hearing portion of the agenda item. If the public hearing is reopened, both the applicant and the applicant allowed an equal amount of time to provide additional testimony. After the additional comments, the board will close the public hearing portion of the case and deliberate and then take a final vote. Again, if any member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support of or in opposition to a case, he or she will need to fill out a speaker's card. These are available at the front podium. Speaker's cards are not required of applicants since their names are already part of the public record.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ragsdale. The board is a supporter of community involvement, and we welcome neighborhood comments and feedback. We are respectful of the fact that many of you have taken off work or adjusted your schedules to be here today, but we ask that your comments be made within the time frame allowed. If there are multiple speakers, please try not to be repetitive so as to make the most of your side's 10-minute time allotment. Lastly, I would like to ask you all to silence your cell phones so as not to interrupt or disturb anyone during today's proceedings. And I'm going to have to turn mine off in a minute. Okay, we are now going to move to the consent agenda. With our procedures now explained, I would like to introduce to my right Ms. Lisa Wilbanks, who will be this morning's consent agenda chairperson. Ms. Wilbanks will read items 1 through 10 as the consent agenda. Once the consent agenda is read, if you wish to discuss one of those items individually, please come forward and give us the item number, and we will pull that case. We will then vote on the remaining consent agenda items as one. Vote, and following the vote, we will hear the cases that were pulled individually. Ms. Wilbanks, will you please proceed?
Yes, ma'am. Item number 1 has been withdrawn. Item number 3, case MJR 22-39 and Bartlett adjacent. The request is a major modification to allow wholesale trade uses in the Witten Grove PD at 6711 Reese Road. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 4, case MJR 22-40 in the medical district. The request is a major modification to increase allowable area for office use and to allow an antique shop at 707 Adams Avenue. The staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 6, case S22-30 in Midtown. The request is a 10-lot major subdivision for townhomes at 1925 Union Avenue. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 7, case SAC 22-04 in Midtown. The request is a street and alley closure at 2429 Broad Avenue. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 8, case PD 22-17 in Midtown. The request is a special use permit for a planned residential development to retroactively legitimize a front yard parking pad at 221 North McLean Boulevard. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 9, case SUP 22-23 in downtown. The request is a special use permit for vehicle rental at 119 Danny Thomas Boulevard. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. That is our consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Wilbanks. Anyone now wishing to pull a case from the consent agenda, please come forward and give us the item number. Okay, hearing none, we have pulled items number 2, 5, and 10. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve item number 3, case MJR 22-39. Item number 4, case MJR 22-40. Item number 6, case S22-30. Item number 7, case SAC 22-04. Item number 8, case PD 22-17. And item number 9, case SUP 22-23.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, Dr. Pritchard, second. I assume there's no questions, any discussion? Then I assume we're ready to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Dr. Pritchard is in charge of our regular agenda. No, yeah. 2.
Okay.
Oh, okay. 5 and 10. Two, 5, and 10.
All right, agenda item number 2, SUP 22-022 Cordova. Special use permit to allow a funeral home at 705 South Parkway. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. Is the applicant present? If you would come up and give us your name, address, and then we'll hear the case. Right now, we just need your name and address.
Delano Smith, 3831 Lakehurst Drive, Memphis, Tennessee, 38128.
Okay, thank you. We're ready for the hearing, to hear it.
Yep. Good morning, Chair Sharp, members of the board. My name is Seth Thomas for the Division of Planning and Development. Case before us, SUP 2222. So it's just some general information. This is located at 705 and 691 South Parkway East. It's in Council District 6, Super District 8, positions 1, 2, and 3. The owner and applicant is the Monumental Baptist Church and Afterlife Mortuary Services. The representative is Smith Building Design, and the request is using an existing structure for funeral and mortuary services within the CMU1 zoning district. Here's a location of where the property is within the city of Memphis. Here's an aerial of the site. And here's the zoning atlas. So along South Parkway East, it's kind of the surrounding uses are sort of residential to the south with some institutional and commercial to the north and east, and then more residential to the west. The land use map, as you can see, is sort of a spattering of commercial, institutional, multifamily, and single-family uses. Here are some site photos, a view of the subject property from South Parkway, or east facing south, and then from the corner of Gabby Street and South Parkway east facing southeast. So here's the preliminary plan. It's really just using the existing structure as is. There is an unkept sort of alley that is in between the area along Gabby Street that is proposed for parking, and then the actual building itself, which is a one-story, 9,670 square foot building. So in conclusion, the applicant is seeking a special use permit for the approval of an existing structure located within the CMU1 zoning district for funeral and mortuary services. This property has been vacant since 2008, and staff feels the reuse of the property is an appropriate way to sort of bring this building, this area of South Parkway East back to life. And staff feels this project will not have any substantial or undue adverse effects along the adjacent properties. And just sort of so I don't like putting them in my PowerPoints because they're sort of unruly, but this also received a favorable recommendation from the Office of Planning Development, the comprehensive planning side of things, where this particular property sits within the nurture area of the degree of change, and the proposed use is a private investment that will stimulate market activity and allowing a business to relocate to the neighborhood. And this building is going to increase the mix of uses within this neighborhood, which is kind of the goal of this nurture, accelerate, and sustain location within the comprehensive Memphis 3.0 plan. And so as a result, staff is recommending approval with a couple of conditions. One, all existing sidewalks and curb openings along the frontage shall be inspected for ADA compliance. All refuse containers shall be screened from the view of all adjacent properties and right-of-way, and we also are putting a condition for signage. No window signs, banner signs, roof signs, feather signs, reader board signs, changeable copy signs, or temporary signs shall be permitted on this property. That concludes my presentation, and I'm open for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Do we have any questions for Mr. Thomas at this time? Okay, hearing none, Mr. Smith, we're ready for you, and then after Mr. Smith, we will hear the opposition.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for having me. The two owners, Ms. Madeline and Lynn and Ms. Dana Taylor, have been in the business for about 12 years plus. They are trying to expand their business to this location, and we appreciate Mr. Thomas for his recommendation, and also all the questions we had to needed answers to. The building, as he said, has been vacant for a while. The church is in agreement with the owners in remodeling this building and bringing it up to some today's standards. We had a very positive neighborhood meeting. The people that showed up were very positive and were glad to see something being done with the building. So that encouraged the owners to move forward quickly, and we just appreciate you giving us a positive recommendation and approval of this. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now ready for the opposition. Give us your name and address and then your statement.
Good morning. Name is Tom Clay. Address is 4798 Shelby Lane, Arlington, Tennessee.
Roma Clay, 4788 Shadowview Lane, Arlington, Tennessee.
Adrian Glover, 1716 Hunter's Trace Drive.
Okay.
I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity, and I'd like to say good morning to the board. My concern is that I heard him say that they had a meeting with the owners to make sure that this property was presented for sale and to be taken over by another organization. Being a member of the Monumental Baptist Church, we have not received or had a meeting about this property being sold, vacated, rented, or anything. So we kind of want to know where you get the meeting date, which was the 11th, if I recall, of July, and we have not been informed. There also was told that there was a letter sent out addressed to Monumental Baptist Church to be notified about this property. Now, we never did receive any letter, and we did not send back any kind of notification or in agreements of any kind. And that's my concern this morning. Who gave the permission in order to have the property looked at or bidded on? We have not been informed of any of that. That was my question this morning.
Okay.
Good morning. I'm going to feedback on that because there was a meeting held and the congregation was not enlightened on this. And we had a meeting on July the 31st, and the congregation did inform the pastor that we did not want this to take place across the street from our church. This is a decision he's making on his own, that he's the owner of the church, but he's not the owner of the church. He should come to the congregation and speak to us about this before he sells this property.
Good morning. My comment would be pretty much the same as the two congregants you've heard before me. I think our concerns are the fact that our pastor, this proposition is erroneous of the fact that Reverend Bryant has commissioned a offer that is not his to make. Therefore, we could not even consider making a sale of property when the congregants have not been informed. The decision should be everyone's, not one person's. The property does not belong to him. Therefore, he does not have the authority to make a sale, a proposition of a sale. So in that case, we could not even be at this position yet. We were not informed until after the fact. I can't say whether or not I would be interested in afterlife mortuaries being in a position across the street from our church. If we have not been informed, therefore, we could not make a decision. The decision was not made until after he signed an application for the sale. He does not have the right to make the decision for that sale. It is the church's decision, not one person's decision. Thank you for hearing us.
I have a question. You said it's the church's decision. Who owns the property?
Monumental Baptist Church, which is
okay.
all of us, not his.
Okay, I got
Thank you.
Any questions of any of the opposition?
I have questions. So, interesting. So, does your pastor have the right to, I think you just explained this, but does he have the right to represent on behalf of the congregation?
No.
Church?
No.
Okay.
No, that's where the trustees and deacon and the body of the church come in.
Yes, ma'am.
He does not have that right to make the decision on his own.
Part of your church government?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. Okay.
And he did not even do that. It was one person.
One person.
Okay.
And he signed a document on his own.
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, if I could ask Mr. Ragsdale, this is an interesting little twist. If the pastor doesn't have the right to represent as the owner, the applicant, can you help us out with that a little bit, please?
Yes, I mean, I believe that what we would do here, this is really about the use, and if the board sees that the use is appropriate and the application is appropriate, I think that the matter of ownership and who has legal right to do that, that's a legal matter for them to really decide and determine. So it really wouldn't be something that the board would be involved in.
So just to say it in other words, if we just look at the land use, forget the legal ownership issues, which are real, focus just on the land use, I don't know if the board's gonna vote it up or down, but then you've got the right to sort out all the legal issues after this meeting, no matter what happens.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the opposition? Before we hear the rebuttal of the owner, Mr. Smith, the owner representative, Mr. Smith. Okay, we don't have any more questions of you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're ready for the rebuttal.
I would just like to say to the opposition that we did bring this before the pastor, and he said he would speak with him and discuss it with him. That's all we could have done at that point. But thank you.
Any further questions?
Yes. Mr. Smith, I have one question. You mentioned that you did have a public meeting and the people who were there was in agreement with what was going on?
Yes, sir. We followed the requirements of the 500-foot radius, and the people that came were in agreement, and we did what we were required. I'm thinking that the people here are probably not within that 500-foot radius, but the church was notified, and we assumed that the pastor said he would take care of it, so we left it at that point.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, we don't go back and forth. He just has a chance to rebuttal, and then if anybody in the, any of the board members need to ask any question, we can do that, but we don't go back and forth.
I would like to have a question, though, if permitted.
No, we're through with the opposition side. Okay.
As a board member, go ahead and ask your question, please, sir. Just go ahead and get this.
I apologize for this, but he said he met with the two people that was in agreement. Who was those two people? Are you allowed to state the name of those two people?
Well, I'm not gonna say the name, but they were within the 500-foot radius, and they were property owners within that neighborhood.
Okay, so they was not monumental.
No, sir. We notified the pastor, and he said he would. Well, the pastor was part of this process, so he was y'all's representative.
Okay, Mr. Thomas.
So if I may, I think sort of the situation that's going on here is right. So Tennessee Code annotated states that we've got to send public notice to all property owners within 500 feet. And because this is a special use permit, they're required a sign posting in a neighborhood meeting. That neighborhood meeting notice also goes to those in 500-foot radius. The issue here, I think, is so the pastor is the one who filed this application as the pastor of the church, and so we accepted the application under, the idea that he is, I guess, an owner-operator of the church, which, of course, we don't have the background to the legal documentation as far as board of trustees, that type of thing. And so all of the notification that went out to adjacent property owners. We don't, in the situation where a church files a special use permit, send it to all of the parishioners or people that attend that church. And so I think that's sort of where there's this lack of notice given to y'all, is because ours is a geographic bubble, not necessarily the bubble of those who attend church at Monumental Baptist. So that's, I think, kind of where this is kind of come up, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Okay, Dr. Pritchard.
Madam Chair, I see that there are so many issues here, and we don't have them sorted out. I would like to move that we hold this item for a month.
Do I have a second
Yep,
on that?
second.
Okay, it has been moved and second that we hold this item for a month. We'll vote on this first. All in favor say, any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We will hold it for 1 month.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
We
We're ready.
will go now to agenda item number 5.
Yeah, 1 month.
S22-78 Wolf Chase, 2-lot re-subdivision at the lot to the east of 2844 New Brunswick Road. Staff recommendation is rejection.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. Is the applicant here? If you would give us your name and address, and then we'll have the staff bring a hearing or hear it.
Sure, I'm the applicant's representative, Mark Jobe, 6,000 Poplar, Suite 400, Memphis, Tennessee, 38119. This is the representative for the actual ownership entity, St. Charles Place, Inc., Ed Brundick. Address
6490 South Oak Shadow Circle.
Thank you. We're ready for the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Brett Ragsdale with the Division of Planning and Development. This case, the case manager on this is Brett Davis. He is not in the office today, so I'll be presenting on his behalf, and I'm familiar with the case. So this is a case, it's S2228. It's the request for a 2-lot re-subdivision in an existing subdivision that is known as St. Charles Place, which is just to the north of I-40 and just to the east of the Wolf Chase Mall. This is a request, and so that's the aerial or the location map that you can see the pink dot. This is a site plan. It's an existing undeveloped parcel that has an existing legal non-conforming billboard on it, which is just as I said, to the north of I-40. This is an aerial view of the current lot. And a little closer view, you can see the shadow of the billboard there on the lot. So the property around the parcels are developed, and this lot has remained undeveloped. And the request is to subdivide this to allow the development of the property. And the uses adjacent are mostly commercial, one office just to the north. Here's an area or a view of the site looking toward I-40. Another view of the existing billboard. And the site plan showing the proposed subdivision and separate lot for the billboard and what would be remaining to be developed. And you can see there's an access easement to the east that would access this proposed subdivided lot for the billboard. So basically, the billboard is legal non-conforming, and this would allow the development of that property. However, we are recommending rejection of this. We believe that the parcel could be developed for a higher and better use if it were not encumbered by the billboard. And so that was the reason that we're basically recommending rejection. We believe that the applicant has a choice. They could either keep the billboard and the property as it is, or removal of the billboard would actually allow them to be able to develop this property in a higher and better use in that location. So with that, we are recommending rejection. However, if approved, we recommend the following conditions: that a shared access easement would be provided, which actually is already shown on the site plan, and a maximum of 1 curb cut shall be permitted, so that they would actually just share the same curb cut. And then number 2, the textual and graphic conditions of a re-subdivision of lots 15 to 16 of the St. Charles Place subdivision shall apply. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ragsdale. Do we have any questions of Mr. Ragsdale at this time? Okay, hearing none, we're ready for the applicant to make your presentation.
Thank you. So, going back, Mr. Brundick originally contacted me earlier this year around February, and his group, St. Charles Place, this was developed by St. Charles Place, Inc., The sole shareholder of that entity, or the controlling shareholder of that entity, Charles Boone, who's been around and before this board before, I'm sure, passed away, and ownership of the entity transferred to a group controlled by Mr. Brundick and his partner, a fellow named Malcolm Myers. So this is a new ownership group, and they now own a few remaining lots that remained in the developer, this being one of them, and are active in the entire subdivision accordingly. Historically, this was Mr. Boone's property, or he developed it. It was his baby. It's named after him, St. Charles. But anyway, that's a little background there. And I had previously been before the Board of Adjustment on a different billboard lot in this subdivision related to trying to do something similar with to add additional parking. That was rejected. All that to say, this is when he contacted me, I had concerns about this. And so what we did is we requested a zoning letter, which was issued in February and stated that this was a legal conforming billboard, which is why we went down the path of trying to create a lot in a subdivision that would fully comply with the requirements of the UDC. Okay, so over the past few months, we've done that. We put together the application. We got the survey and site plan drawn. We believed that this was in compliance with the UDC, this legal conforming billboard was in compliance, and that we could create a subdivision lot that would be in full compliance with the UDC. On Friday, when we got the staff report, it stated that this is apparently a legal nonconformity. And that legal nonconformity, as I understand it, is that a portion of the billboard, the sign structure itself, sits within 20 feet of the Interstate 40 right-of-way, which is technically true. I went out there yesterday, and the survey presents the property fairly as where the technical right-of-way ends. However, what you can't see on this, and you could see on the aerial, is that there's over 100 feet of grass and drainage area between the interstate and the property line. So I'm not, that, with respect to the non-conformity, if we need to seek a variance for that, I don't know all of the history regarding the sign, when it was put up, when it was changed, or all of that. I don't have all that history, but I would think a variance of the 20-foot setback would be appropriate, given that there's 100 feet or over 100 feet between the property line and the actual used right-of-way that's not for drainage and buffer, if you will. So that goes to what our plan was and why we're here and how we got here. I would like to point out, and we're willing to, one of the concerns in the staff report was that this property couldn't be, this billboard couldn't be taken down and replaced with another billboard or another use that would be in compliance with the code because of the design. We're willing to redesign it within reason to accommodate that. And we're willing to go, if necessary, to the Board of Adjustment. But again, we were caught off guard by this, and in support of it, we held a neighborhood meeting. A few people attended. They had no concerns, really. They were actually on the other side of the interstate and interested because they got a notice and they didn't know anything about it. But as you can see, it's a big lot. We think you could put a constructive use there that would increase the tax base and preserve the billboard, which we think is valuable and consistent with what's up and down I-40. There are other similar lots that have been approved, not exactly the same. I know there's nuances, but we have examples up and down I-40 of similar situations where there's an access easement or an irregular lot that preserves a billboard in effect. That's 0 Shelby Oaks Drive, 5605 Shelby Oaks Drive. And then I have another one this was on, not on I-40, but a case from 2016, S1616, that I think accomplished essentially the same purpose. And Most importantly, also, is it's consistent with Memphis 3.0. This is commercial service high density. We think this use is appropriate. The advertising along I-40 is, in my opinion, appropriate and consistent with what's going on along that interstate. And so I guess that sums up everything and how we got here and why we designed it the way we did. And, you know, our thought was that we were submitting something that was in full compliance with a legal conforming billboard, and that was based on the zoning letter we received. So we were caught by surprise by that. We understand the issues related to the setback. I see what's in the UDC, but we think, you know, the fact that it is 100+ feet away from the actual used right-of-way is reason enough, or you know, I think it's in substantial compliance with the UDC, and it's not right up on, you know, a billboard right up on the right-of-way. And so we'd ask for your support, and if, you know, if there are revisions to the plan, if we need to make the billboard lot a little bigger, that's fine. But our hope was to submit something that was in full compliance with the UDC that we could get approved. And we ask for your support. If you have any questions for Ed, he's happy to answer those. But, you know, we think this could redevelop that large lot for and keep the billboard, which is also a productive use. And we ask for your support, and if there's conditions that would make it acceptable, we'd be receptive to hear those and work with the board to find a way to get this approved.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions for the applicant and or the representative? No questions? Okay, hearing none, then I'm going to close the public portion of the case. Oh, just a minute, I'm sorry. Is there any opposition here? Okay, I'm going to close the public portion. Dr. Pritchard.
Move approval of agenda item number 5, S22-78 Wolf Chase.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved. I hear a second. Is there any discussion amongst the board members?
We got a zoning letter that says conformance today. Brown's tuning.
Art.
I just had a quick question about the conformance or non-conformance about the lot. If they got a zoning letter that said it was in conformance and then staff now says it's not in conformance, how does that happen?
Right, and I would have to go back and look at all the details, but what I would assume is it was in conformance. It is in conformance with the zoning. It's CMU 3, so that is allowed. It's on an interstate, that is allowed. They probably did have a survey with the zoning letter request, and so that 20-foot, within the 20-foot right-of-way was probably not apparent. So that was just something that was not requested as part of the zoning letter and not made apparent. So
thank you, Brett.
And that's not required. I would just note that while it might be illegal non-conforming for that, that's not something that the board would need to deal with at this point because it is legal non-conforming. So
sure.
Yeah.
Are there any further discussions?
Chair, I appreciate the job DPD does, and I understand the concern about getting this letter at the last minute. Everybody's just doing their job. It is what it is. I'm going to support this case just because I just think, what else are you going to do with that property? I think it's a reasonable request, and I just plan on supporting it. I just want to say that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I just have, comment. The way it's laid out with the two lots, it appears that if we approve this, then the small lot where the sign is can only be used for the billboard. And I guess my concern is that in the non-conformity, but as Mr. Brasdale said, that's not part of what we discuss at this point. And I guess if you need to get a variance or something, you could do that. But that was my only concern, that the lot could only be used for that billboard. And that means that the billboard would be there because it has its own lot for that, to do that. But that's the only comment that I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. Are we going to vote together or one by one?
We can do a roll call, I think. Do we have a motion and a second?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it. All
One
right.
by one or together? Okay, one by one. Okay. Go
Ready for
ahead.
a roll call? Okay. Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Tolles?
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard?
Yes.
Chair Sharp?
Yes.
Carries.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last item,
Turn your mic on.
excuse me. The last item, Madam Chair, is agenda item number 10, Z22-05, Southeast Memphis, rezoning of 52.46 acres from conservation agriculture to employment at 5481 Davidson Road. Staff recommendation is approval.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. Okay, the applicant is here. Give us your name and address, and then it'll be heard.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Josh Whitehead, Burst Porter Johnson, 130 North Court.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. My name is Tom McCary, 5101 Arden Avenue in Edina, Minnesota.
Thank you.
Came a long way.
Okay, we're ready to hear the case.
Okay, good morning. Lucas Skinner with the Division of Planning and Development. Again, this is case Z 2022-5, located at 5481 Davidson. The request, again, is a rezoning for approximately 52 acres from conservation agriculture, or CA, to employment, light industrial, also acronym to EMP. The aerial of the site, this is just west of Lamar, very south as you're heading towards Mississippi. In fact, one of sort of the unique things about this is one of the last properties south that's located within the city limits, within City of Memphis limits. So the residential properties to the south are actually located within the county. To give zoning and land use, again, residential properties to the south, it's currently, this site is used residential with also some horse stables on site, and then there are existing industrial properties to the north as well as to the east across Davidson. A few site photos. The one on the left is from Davidson, showing the current existing entrance into the property. It's pretty heavily wooded along Davidson as you head south. And then the photo on the right is actually a photo looking north towards the property, as if you were looking kind of from the back of the residential properties that are to the south. Give a plot plan to show sort of idea of what's happening here. Again, this is the big red box to show the entire site. There is a TVA easement. It's 100 feet. It's on the south side of this property that abuts the adjacent residential properties. In conclusion, the request is to rezone. Again, it's approximately 52 acres from CA to employment to EMP. Again, the current existing use of the site is residential. It's one of the last large true CA lots, if you will, located anywhere in the area. The purpose of the request would be to essentially create a site that would be allowed for potential warehousing, heavy office, typical light industrial uses that would be there for EMP, fairly similar to what's happening to the north and east of the site. Again, there are the residential existing uses to the south. We found this request to be consistent with Memphis 3.0, given what's going on in the area. And given that this is a zoning case, we are recommending straight approval with no conditions. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? No questions? Okay, we're ready for the applicant.
Good morning. Like I said earlier, my name is Tom McCary. I'm a development director with Scannell Properties. Thank you all for taking the time to consider our application this morning. Skinnell Properties is a privately owned real estate development company that specializes in industrial product. We've been fairly active in the Memphis market for a number of years now. We've completed 3 buildings in DeSoto County. We have 1 under construction in Marshall County, and we have 3 under construction right now in Shelby County in southeast Memphis. We feel that the subject property is a very logical location for additional industrial development, and we just love, creating the jobs and the personal investment and driving up tax revenue wherever we can, and we really enjoy doing business in Memphis. People are great, the music is great, food is even better. I like coming here. Minnesota does not have great cuisine. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to quickly go through some of our relevant points, and then I'm going to shut up and hand the floor over to the opposition, because I think what we'd like to do is glean some of the opportunities for compromise from the opposition between now and third reading of City Council, which may be 4 to 6 weeks from now. According to the Daily Memphian, we have one of the lowest, if not the lowest, vacancy rates in the warehouse sector in metropolitan Memphis in the history of us keeping that metric. It's less than 4% right now, and at a record of $4 per foot in rent. And according on the national scale, Forbes says that to keep up with the demand for warehousing, we need 250 million square feet per year. And so the question for Memphis is, where will it go? Next slide, please. So this is looking into our site. Our site is highlighted with a yellow star. Cedarwood Farms is currently a horse farm right now. And highlighted in red are various industrial uses. And then in magenta to our left is MLGW's liquefied natural gas facility. And to the west of that, in a lighter pink, is BFI's, now Republic's, South Shelby landfill. Next slide. And indeed, when the Memphis 3.0 plan was formulated, it recognized that this Lamar corridor would be ideal for the concentration of additional industrial uses. Light gray, by the way, which our site is color-coded as, dark gray is heavy industrial. So the Memphis 3.0 plan would likely support a heavy industrial rezoning. We, again, are asking for a light industrial zoning, the EMP district. One important note about Lamar, and going to the point of the 3.0 plan, the 3.0 plan, the basic premise is let's adjust our land use where we're investing money on our infrastructure. TDOT is spending $250 million improving Lamar right now. And specifically to this site, the Holmes intersection will become an interchange, a controlled access interchange. And with that $250 million improvement, we're going to see more and more of the gray parcels on this map that are not currently zoned for industrial. You're going to see more and more requests because we have such a demand right now, and the state, the city, and the county are putting so much money into this corridor to ready make it for industrial uses. One of the funds that supported that $250 million allocation was called the IMPROVE Act, which stands for Improving Manufacturing, Public Roads, and Opportunity for a Vibrant Economy. And I think indeed that looks at speaks to our site directly. Next slide. However, we realize that there is an anachronistic subdivision to our south. It is a residential subdivision that is probably more connected to Olive Branch than it is to Shelby County. The north half of the subdivision is located in Shelby County, and we want to recognize and be respectful of that. So right off the bat, when we filed for our application, we left a 57-foot buffer to be rezoned, to remain the conservation agricultural zone. The remainder would be zoned to EMP. That buffer would be untouchable by any driveways, buildings, etc. of our proposal. Next slide. In addition to that, we have a TVA easement. TVA has already placed some overhead electrical lines, the purpose of which is to support electricity in Olive Branch, actually. That has been installed. we're negotiating with TVA at this moment to come, apparently eminent domain works this way. They do it, they take it, and then you negotiate years down the road on what it just cost you. Next slide. So that is an automatic additional 50 feet of buffer. Our proposal is to take that 7 southern feet and heavily landscape it with conifers and other evergreen plantings. Next slide. When you zoom into the distances between the proposed warehouses and the existing houses, it's more than 500 feet. Again, a 200-foot setback on our side, a 7-foot buffer on our side, including the 100-foot TVA easement, and then most of the houses on the south side of that property line on Cedar Ridge are roughly 300 feet from their rear property lines. Next slide. We have modeled our proposal after what was done at Old Dominion Trucking off Hudgens, which was approved by this body, I guess, about 6 or 7 years ago. Next slide. And this is a close-up on it. Its northern, things are flipped. It abutted residential on its north, and it had a TVA easement. And so we're modeling our proposal after that. Next slide. And I'm going to close right now to allow the opposition to speak, but we have a great opportunity to add conditions to a rezoning. And I know that's antithetical to everything you know about rezonings, but we need to ask for an administrative deviation because we're going to request that our buffer be on the agricultural zoning and not on the industrial zoning, because we want that buffer to be as close as possible to the residents. That will necessitate an administrative deviation, which itself we plan on filing between now and the city council through negotiations with the neighborhood, so we can make sure that it's as close to a healthy and happy compromise between the two parties as possible. With that, Madam Chair, I'm available for any questions, but I'll relinquish the floor right now.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. Are there any questions of Mr. Whitehead right now? Okay, hearing none, we're ready to hear from the opposition. I have one card here. Give us your name and address.
My name is Andy Staggs, 5184 North Cedar Ridge Drive, Memphis, 38118. Okay. I'm one of the property owners in the neighborhood, and as we call it, our little piece of heaven. We have several items, concerns. You'll have to forgive me. I'm not a speaker. I don't like this.
Could you get a little closer to the microphone because I can barely hear you?
If there's anybody in my neighborhood that wants to speak. Okay, we've got several concerns. First of all, the buffer. We don't feel that it's big enough. We're going to put bushes and trees there. It's going to take years for that to grow. It's going to take years for the noise. We're worried about the security behind our facilities, behind our homes, excuse me. We know that Crows was just built on the other side of the street of Davidson, up against another property owner, and they're having major issues with the trash and the debris. We know that that's going to come across the street behind our facility, our homes. We've got no trucks that are supposed to be allowed past the stables. We've got trucks in our neighborhood all the time. The police, the tow trucks, they're having to come and pull them out because they're too big. They don't read. We want to know where the drive is going to go. Are they going to add another drive? Are they going to use the drive that's going into the stables? Because there are power lines. There's a, excuse me, the way that it comes in, the way the road is set. Crows comes out. The trucks come out of Crows. They don't stop. There's no yield. There's no stop. So when the people from our subdivision or from Mississippi are coming around the corner, there's accidents already. We're concerned about that. We're concerned about more traffic with all the construction going on, and they've widened Lamar 78 and moved it closer to us, there's a lot of traffic from the current warehouses that have been built. Those people come out. They block the traffic because it's hard to get in and out, so blocking the traffic so that they can get out stops traffic coming from Mississippi, blocks traffic coming off of Lamar onto Davidson. We're concerned with the noise, our property value dropping for our homes on Davidson, the night activity that's going to go on. Currently, we're not concerned with anything behind our homes because we have horses. That's one of the main reasons why we bought the home in 2013, was because of the privacy. There's one entrance. We have 2 coves. The people across the street are Olive Branch. We've got 2 coves in our neighborhood. So if anybody comes in our neighborhood, we know that they're pretty much going. They live there. It's quiet. It's peaceful. The crime rate right now is minimal. We've got, on the stables right now, there's 4 homes, I would say there's 5 homes, because there's the caretakers that live with children next to the barn. They're going to be out of a house. You've got the business that runs the horse stables. They're going to have to relocate all these horses. We've got, there's just so many warehouses. We're concerned right now. Lucas is saying that there's a buffer of 100 foot. Josh is saying there's currently a buffer of 57. Where's the buffer? Where's the 57? Is that where the fence is from the TVA? Is that from fence to fence 100 foot? I'm not sure if there's a contradictory or I'm not understanding exactly. If it's okay, I'm going to turn it over to Gary.
Okay, he can speak, but afterwards we need to have a speaker's card filled out.
There are no cards down here.
Okay. All right. Give us your name and address, sir. The next speaker?
Good morning, Council.
You have
My
about...
name is Y.C. Cox, and I reside at 5376 North Cedar Ridge Drive.
Okay, you all have 5 minutes left.
Cedar Ridge Road. On the very first house as you turn on the street. Now, I'm deeply grateful for the good faith effort of the buffer, but it's important that the investors don't put us in harm's way. If you examine the complete property, Prologis invested several years ago, and they built a really nice partition on the north portion of the property. And what I'm asking is that we duplicate something similar to that partition, because if you look at what's happening right now, TVA is building or improving the power lines, and right in that area, they have created a safety problem out of this world. So we're asking, I'm an advocate for advancement. I don't have a problem with that. But we're asking that they not put us in harm's way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Gary Waters. I live at 5925 Cedar Ridge Drive, Olive Branch, Mississippi, 38654. These are my neighbors right across the street. I'd like to address, Mr. Whitehead, correct? I'd like to address 2 things he said. This is 3.0. He's talking about that corridor going up Lamar Avenue to Holmes Road interchange. Well, once you get to Holmes Road interchange and you go west, it's 2 lanes. That's it. Harold Ford Sr. promised 4 lanes 30 years ago, and it never happened. So it's 2 lanes once you get off that interchange heading west, going toward Amazon. and that's going to be bad. And I also hit on a little bit, when they widened 78, it brought the intersection closer to the driveways of Crows and the existing warehouses. So now you've got a couple hundred feet till the intersection of Davidson and Lamar. So now you've got, if you see the upper right-hand corner of that picture, the curve does not do it justice. If they put a driveway there, it's a hill and a curve. And it's very dangerous. Crow comes out on the right, the existing warehouse comes out on the left. A lot of accidents there. And there's a utility pole that the city 4 years ago moved back 3 or 4 feet. So instead of hitting it with your left front fender, you hit it with your right front fender now, and all their power goes out. The utility lines need to be addressed in that area because they have power outages all the time. That is a very bad curve. When Crow's built, we came up here, fought stuff, and we were told that they were going to straighten that curve out and make it a better way to get up to Lamar. That never happened. It's still a bad, bad curve. So these are concerns that we have, is the amount of tractor trailers coming out. I don't know how they're going to come out on Davidson Road. It's a 2-lane country road. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do we have any questions of the opposition? Any questions? Okay, we're ready for applicant to give us a 3-minute rebuttal.
Yes, thank you. I can't quite address every concern. There were a number of them, but I think a common theme is safety and traffic concerns. And so I just want to say, first and foremost, I think it's important to point out that our proposed development is for office warehouse product, not bulk warehouse. The big distinguishing difference being far less truck traffic. You know, we have only 1 dock wall rather than 2. As you can see from our plan, these are much smaller buildings. They're going to be shorter in height. Lots of auto traffic because it's far more office and production type uses, higher employment. So we anticipate the truck traffic to be far less than your typical bulk industrial development. So it'll be more auto than truck. Also, these users are going to be smaller in nature. We're not anticipating large truck volumes for their uses either. It's speculative, so we can't say anything with any certainty because we don't know who they're going to be yet. But in general, this is not the type of industrial development that's going to create heavy, heavy truck traffic. Also, all of our trucks are going to want to get to Lamar. I don't foresee a reason why any of them would want to take a right and go south. We plan to commission a traffic study to assess the safe operational traffic flows currently in place. If level of service, I mean, it's essential to us that the level of services are strong and the traffic flows, well. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to lease these buildings. So we're going to be taking the necessary steps to scrutinize traffic flows and make sure, if any necessary offsite improvements are needed, we have a vested interest to see that happen. I can't comment about Crow and why their trucks are doing what they're doing. That's somebody else. But we're open to putting up signage for our truckers so they know that they need to be going north. Josh?
Thank you. And as one final point, Mr. Skinner, if you can advance one, thank you. Going to Holmes is that first major east-west road to the north. I represented a client at the Board of Adjustment a couple months ago. Holmes Road is currently, the right-of-way has been acquired, and the improvements will be happening within probably 6 to 12 months. So the city and the county are very serious in capitalizing on the investment that the state has made along Lamar. Also on Davidson Road, we will be going through the site plan review process with engineering. Engineering, I am almost certain, will require us to improve Davidson Road to soften the curves, but mainly to provide a left center lane for trucks to get on and get off of Davidson Road. There'd be no need for them to take a right. Going through Olive Branch, there's no easy way to get to the expressway system or the major road system. They will all be taking a left. And we just believe this is not only consistent with the 3.0 plan, but it's truly the highest and best use considering the surroundings. And I'm available for any questions, and I would appreciate your favorable vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Whitehead?
Hey, Josh, how far of an improvement will you guys make on the Davidson Road?
engineering will require us, at a minimal, at a minimal, they will require us to improve from our southern driveway north. But likely they'll ask us to go the entire frontage. I would like, again, between now and city council, I'm going to get with Ms. Staggs and as many other people as I can get with to come up with the ideal look of Davidson. On one end, we want to make sure we have safe in and out traffic, but on the other side, it's a beautiful tree canopied road, and I think there's probably a innovative way to get both things, safe traffic and retain some of that foliage.
Any other questions? No questions? Then I will close the public portion of the meeting. Dr. Pritchard?
Move approval of agenda item number 10, Z2022-005.
Okay, we have a second and we have a motion. Is there any discussion amongst the board members? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Chair, that's the end of the agenda.
Okay, are there any announcements?